Somebody handed me a note. The Reuters reporting Postmaster General paused all operational reforms after outcry. Well, he should. They felt the heat, and that's what we were trying to do, is to make it too hot for them to handle.
That Nancy Pelosi in the middle of an interview getting the news that Postmaster General Louis DeJoy is doing a 180. He's backing down from cuts that were slowing down service with the post office. But today, House Speaker said she spoke with DeJoy, and this is how she describes their conversation. Postmaster General frankly admitted that he had no intention of replacing the sorting machines, blue mailboxes, and other key mail infrastructure that had been removed, and that plans for adequate overtime, which is critical for the timely delivery of mail, are not in the works. DeJoy, the Republican mega donor who got the job in May, then proceeded to do the president's bidding by slashing service right as an election was gearing up and the president railed against mail-in voting. By the way, DeJoy set to testify before the Senate this Friday and then the House on Monday. Plus, more than 20 states, they are suing the Postal Service. Meantime, tens of millions of Americans out of work. Congress still hasn't moved on the next round of stimulus needed to make ends meet. Now, in fact, lawmakers, they're not even in our nation's capital. Here to talk about all of that, plus the convention, Congressman James Clyburn from South Carolina. He, the majority whip, making him the third-ranking Democrat in the House. Congressman, let's start off with the post office. DeJoy says, fine, I'll call off the dogs. Do you trust him? And do you also agree with Speaker Pelosi that the damage is already done?
No, I don't trust him at all. I think that whatever we pass on Saturday, I will hope that we have this legislation written so tightly until we can hold his feet to the fire, so to speak. You know, Maya Angelou once said that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And so I'm going to believe him the first time. I don't expect him to do right. And I hope that we can write this legislation in such a way that we can hold his feet to the fire.
You know, we're 76 days from the election. Is part of you, and I know the real health concerns for people with underlying conditions, the elderly, et cetera, does part of you say, you know what, we can't take the chance here that people won't get their ballots, et cetera. We got to show up in person on election day, or somehow, some way, everybody's vote's going to be counted. It might just take us past November 3rd. What do you think, given where we are in the calendar right now and all the still confusion with the post office?
Well, I think that what we've got to do, with not just this legislation, but we got to say, as we've done in the past with the CARES Act, I don't know what all the states' share may have been. I know what South Carolina's was. Of the money we put in the CARES Act, there was $6.2 million allocated to South Carolina to work on making it convenient for people to vote safely. Now, according to reports I've gotten, they spent $1.5 million of that. That means they got over $4 million right now they could use to help make voting safer. We got to put legislation in this bill and the money in this bill in order to make sure that that happens. So I think it can be done. You've got to have a willingness on the part of the people who are administering these programs to do it right.
You know, you saw the same polls that I did, which is that, and it stands to reason to some degree, Democrats are more concerned with COVID and the health concerns, so a vast majority want to vote via mail versus Trump supporters, two-thirds of which are planning to vote on Election Day. Given that and given this president, should we have any reason to believe that this administration is going to not try everything possible to make it next to impossible for people to vote between now and November?
You know, I've been saying for a long time now, I don't think they're going to make it easy to vote. I think they're doing everything they can not to have an election at all. That is what is going on here. This president seems to be joking. Some people take it as a joke when he says he's thinking about his third and fourth term. I don't take it as a joke. I think he's very serious about that. He wants to find some way to make some declaration of an emergency in order to postpone the elections. He's already said it. we ought to postpone the election because we can't do it fairly. He has no idea of whether or not we can do it fairly. We certainly can't do it safely, not with the monies that we are allocating, or we have already allocated that they're not spending. No, we cannot do it safely.
I want you to listen to what the president said about the results of this election and if he loses, what it really means.
The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that. It's the only way we're going to lose this election. That's a big statement. The only way they're going to win is that way, and we can't let that happen.
Clearly, he's trying to delegitimize the process because he's afraid he's going to lose. But my question is, the next step, do you believe that if he loses, we're not going to have a peaceful transition of power, or at the end of the day, at least the pillars of democracy are going to hold, and whether he likes it or not, he's going to be shown the door? How worried are you that if he doesn't get the result he wants in November, we could have a real problem on our hands?
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a problem on our hands because the fact of the matter is we know full well that this president is not popular enough to win the popular vote. His only thing is to try to win it in the Electoral College. He's picked out his states, and we've looked at the states. It looks as if he's trailing in all but one of them. And I think that's going to be the end result. So he is not going to allow these elections to go forward if the public keeps silent. You know, we're replete with history here. We ought to believe history. Let it be instructive for us. And we've got to make sure that we do what is necessary to protect this very fragile democracy that we have. And it is fragile. We see already from the COVID-19 just how fragile our democracy is and just how broken some of our systems are. We don't have a good healthcare delivery system. It's good, but it's not available and affordable for everybody. Same thing with education. We got to make the greatness of this country accessible and affordable for everybody. And we've got a system that's not allowing that to happen. And we now have a president who's exacerbating all of that with his foolishness.
Speak to that, the CARES Act. Have you already seen constituents of yours in South Carolina already impacted by, struggling to now make the mortgage payment, pay the rent, keep the light bill on, pay the kids' tuition? Since the money stopped flowing or has begun to stop flowing out of Washington, are we already seeing the effects?
Yes, I've been hearing from people already. The anxiety is growing. But I'll tell you what, people are blaming this president for it. They're blaming the United States Senate for it. Most people know a whole lot about the HEROES Act. And they know that the House of Representatives has already passed the HEROES Act, $3.2 trillion, and it's sitting over in the Senate. They follow Mitch McConnell very closely, and they heard him when he said he's not going to bring anything to the floor unless the president supports it. So the public knows exactly who the whole responsible for this, and they are going to demonstrate that at the polls on Election Day. I was in a barber shop on day before yesterday, and the gentleman said to me, I can't wait to get to the poll. I just can't wait. And people are just that anxious. And so I think this president is in for the biggest surprise of his life. He'll never be able to suppress this vote. You might have a lot of people getting sick, like happened up in Wisconsin. He thought they had suppressed the vote up in Wisconsin when he was trying to get his favorite, the Supreme Court Justice, reelected. No, that person lost the election, but a lot of people who stood in line, and they did not have to stand in line, they were forced to stand in line, and they got sick as a result. We should not do that to people, and that's what we're trying to prevent with this bill that we're going to pass on Saturday.
Last question. I've been to more than half a dozen. You've been to more conventions than I have. Tell the truth. You don't miss fighting through those crowds in Milwaukee right now. This virtual thing's worked out pretty good for the first couple of days. You don't miss it, do you?
Well, I thought I would. But I'm really enjoying this. I think that the speeches are shorter. They make more sense. People are saying what they've got to say. All of the crowds, it's good to build off the crowd, but I am more interested in substance at this point in my life. The symbols are good, but there's no substitute for substance. And the substance of this convention just has been great. And I don't think it could be any better. You might have more fun. There might be more socializing, but I don't think you could have a better convention than we are having.
Good enough. Congressman, I know you're really busy. I appreciate you making a few minutes for us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody, when we come back, we are going to kick off our convention coverage with a look at the highlights from last night, and then we'll turn our attention to what to expect this evening and some of the speakers tonight, including, of course, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Kamala Harris. We'll be right back.